go.
we did that before.
Oh, yeah. Jeez, good call, man. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. You like a hurricane! Yeah! Welcome to IoT Coffee Talk, 20th edition.
Wow, 20.
20.
That's big. That's a lot of them. Wow.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd have the entire crew here, but life gets in the way, right?
It does.
We would deal with the cards that were dealt. So
yes,
we have David.
Woo.
We have Rob, we have me, Leonard Lee. And today, what are we going to talk about, Rob?
Well, as part of our intermittent ongoing series of relating IoT to the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, today we'll talk about Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is around water issues and sanitation. Pretty exciting, isn't it?
Big deal.
Yeah. Here, I'll give you a little, our guests, a little background on what this is all about here. So, and you can tell I'm reading from something here.
Uh-huh.
The high level topic, we're going to tie in how IoT can be used to help us with water issues and sanitation. So SDG 6, the high level deals ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Some kind of high level headlines that are not so exciting. Water scarcity affects more than 40% of people, which is, that's an alarming figure, especially with temperatures kind of going up. We've done a good improvement since about 1990, about 2.1 billion people have improved water sanitation, but dwindling drinking water supplies are affecting every continent. More and more countries are experiencing water stress and increasing drought and desertification. That's a word. I guess that means turning into a desert. And it's worsening. By 2050, it's projected that at least 1 in 4 people will suffer recurring water shortages. So, the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a deadline on that. It's 2030. So 10 years away. There's 17 of these guys, and we're supposed to solve all of them by then, and that's a tall order. And so getting safe and affordable drinking water by 2030, that's infrastructure, it's management, sanitation facilities, hygiene, water ecosystems. So let's see here. We've got about 800 million people who lack basic services for getting that water. Let's see here. There's some pretty scary things here. About 2.3 billion lack basic sanitation. Gosh, I don't know if did anybody ever watch the on Netflix, the Inside Bill's Brain, the Bill Gates thing?
Yeah, I did. You told me to watch it, so I watched it. It was really interesting. It's about the toilet thing, right?
Yeah, the first
part of it is the toilet.
Yeah, the first episode was like creating a toilet,
Yeah.
The whole sanitation thing. Which, some of this seems like common sense when you see it. You go to some part of the world and you see the same water that you're drinking from is also a place where other things are happening. And that's not good at all. And
no
so you're
bueno.
Right, it's no bueno.
Yeah, seriously no bueno. Yeah.
So how do we tie in IoT analytics sensors to help out that? That's a big one. That's a tall order.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sanitation, I'll just make a point here. I hope that there's an IoT solution to improve the sanitation at gas station restrooms.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'm just talking about like first world problems, but of course we have all these other problems, but
thanks, Mr. First World Problems.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It's like why are you still using gas stations, Leonard? I mean, that takes...
Oh.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I mean, don't say that in Houston.
No.
Don't say that in Houston, buddy.
Well, maybe I should, specify, why are you using their restrooms at the gas station, not the actual gas station?
No comment.
No comment. But, so here's one. So we're 6.5 months into the pandemic. So, it's the 270th day of March, as I like to think about it, instead of, being last day of September, or is it like, yeah. So we have thousands, hundreds of thousands of commercial buildings that, because of the pandemic, the occupancy is nowhere what it used to be. And these buildings, sticking to water here, have their own water systems because, there's toilets on every floor and water fountains and whatever. So one of the things that will, I hope IT could solve for is what happens when water stops flowing and temperature might not be the same because occupancy is not there. All kinds of gross, disgusting bacteria get into the pipe and into the water system. So there's got to be some sort of flow sensor that can let a building owner know that at least water flow is happening, that the right temperature of this water, still in place, so that when the buildings get reoccupied, we don't get a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand people sick on day one and start all the issues. So anyway, that's the first one that comes to mind, because water just sitting there, I don't care what the environment is bad news every time. So that's one that came to mind.
But my impression, based on what Rob read off and some of the comments that he made, is this is a massive problem. We not only have a brownfield situation that we have to deal with on a massive scale, right? We already have existing cities that have existing water systems. And then we have a lot of these, let's call them exogenous factors, like the climate change and the impact of desertification, which, I think even in China, there's like in the Gobi Desert, I remember maybe 20 years back reading reports about how they're spraying petroleum residue on the desert to keep it back. Basically, it's almost like a layer to keep the dust from the desert moving in toward the east from spreading, and then also causing the yellow dust and all the other problems that it creates. So
yeah, the desert's been growing.
Yeah, it's been growing for a long time, and but I mean, how do we think about the overall problem from a systemic perspective, right? I mean, what are the dimensions? Because there's the brownfield problems, and then there's the greenfield opportunities, just like any other IoT topic or situation that we encounter. Right.
Well, I know one of the brownfield topics that will also be top of mind is the amount of water loss that our water utilities experience today. Again, I capture water here and I'm delivering over there. What percentage of that water evaporates or leaks on leaks that can go undetected for years? Until a sinkhole shows up and it's like, we've been leaking thousands of gallons per minute for, a couple of years. That's a tricky one. And this serves hopefully comment from a water utility professional, because sometimes, is this cost of doing business that, I've got a little leak over here and, that's how it is, versus the amount of money and investment that it will take to effectively correct all leaks within a system, right? Like what gives? Like we don't want the leak, but what does it take to fix all the leaks? So maybe we'll get some comments after we post, because that's an interesting one.
I read a stat, to your point about leakage, and this may just be in the cities, where you have this massive sewage water pumping infrastructure. I heard as much as 60% of the fresh water is leaked out every day.
Yeah.
And so we already have the mother of all challenges ahead of us to just get enough fresh water to get water to all the billions of people that need it on this planet. And so it's hard enough to do that. And now we have leakage working against us, because 60% is that's crazy. And so you can imagine all the effort you're doing only to find out, too bad, we leaked over half of it. tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Water leakage, and you know what? Leak detection is one of those simplest low-hanging fruit IoT things ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we think of the real easy ones,
Yeah.
and it's an easy one to do. There's obviously leak detection sensors out there, and it's not that people aren't already doing that, but everywhere, and so you think of typically, I'm going to do leak detection in the home under my sinks or bathtubs or something like that. Like Leonard, one time when we were at the IoT World Congress, we were talking to the relayer folks, and so much of one of their part of their business model around leak detection was the insurance companies paid for it. Which boy, did that help that IoT project get done when they said, no problem, insurance company, because the actual aerial tables said, flooding in a house right there with fire is the biggest payout we ever have to do. And so we looked at the cost analysis, and it's worth it for us to put in leak detection in your house. So you can imagine that's a great IoT use case, but you need to do it on a grander scale. We need to do every house, all these skyscrapers, this giant subterranean, sewage, and water piping systems under every city that most people never see. And then you're talking about all the buildings. There's pumps that are pumping water up. For every bathroom, all the water faucets. This ties into energy as well, as you can imagine.
But Rob, you're saying if we're going to include every house, this is where, and I know in the context of IoT, we've always thought about the public-private partnerships, because here's the reality. If I am a water company, and I'm going to take a serious approach to leak detection, I want to eliminate waste. The reality is that I am going to look at this for my commercial customers. The factory or the agriculture. Where am I sending millions of gallons of water per month? And let me try to eliminate leaks there, because in the home, it might be a big leak for us. I mean, like any leak will be a problem for me here, because, things are going to get damaged. But in the terms of cost, there might be an opportunity for a program to be put up, say like, hey, city of X, we have a public-private partnership. Here's how we're doing on the public part of it to eliminate leaks. And here's what you, homeowner, renter, whatever, could do to do the same thing on your end, so that together, in the grand scale of things, we can effectively save the precious water that we need to, guess what, stay alive. Maybe there's an opportunity for that there.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, well, I think one of the challenges, though, is with current leak detection business models that are kind of centered around this whole insurance premium incentive. If you have a system installed, is that it's an endpoint thing, right? You're not even really proactively solving the problem. What you're doing is you're detecting the leak to mitigate damage to a property. It's not necessarily incented. It's not a model that's incented to solve the water problem necessarily, right? It's there to solve the problem that water might have on your property. And so I think that's one of the big challenges that we have is the economics. It always boils down to economics, right? And then that means business cases. How do we shape a value proposition that really addresses the problem in a way that is viable given the prevailing economics? And a lot of it, I think, is going to, if we're really going to nip the problem in the butt, especially in the brownfield scenarios, we really need to figure out how to bring the cost down, but more importantly, qualify what the problem is. I mean, this 60% of the water, or what X percent of the water being wasted, what does that mean? And should we be concerned? How come that issue is not a public issue? Because it should be, right? Because if we're going to solve some of these problems associated that the SDGs are trying to address, you need to have public advocacy, because there's going to be, like what you said, David, a public-private partnership that has to happen, because the problem crosses both the private and public domain, or the private public domain, right? And until we get to that point, I don't think we're going to have these solution and problem solvers thinking through the problem in the right way. We're going to be relegated to folks selling little sensors that you stick underneath your cabinet to detect water leaks. And how far does that move the ball? It doesn't actually, because you're just waiting for the leak to happen. It happens, the water gets wasted, but you save maybe $20 on your monthly HOA or the homeowner's insurance.
It's such a big deal about money.
You had me grinning, Leonard, with the but also Leonard, you had me grinning with your with the business model. I
know that's your favorite thing, dude.
Well, no.
It's Mark always want to talk about business model.
Well, but here's the thing. So the question that will get a unanimous yes will be, hey, do we all want to save water? People, no one's going to say no, I don't want to. But in terms of minimizing waste and leak detection, so here in my house, city of Beaverton, if it's on my side of the meter, it's my responsibility, not the city's. And when I say public-private, it's because I'm a taxpayer, and I wouldn't want to basically pay for other people's leaks, so I want to take care of my own. But how do we make that easy? Because it's very different if the leak is on my side of the meter in my yard, and it's really easy to find. But what if I cannot find the leak?
Yeah.
I mean, what happens? Because now, again, remember, this is on the side of of me, the property owner. I know that there's IoT technology that use many different RF frequencies to look to listen, use sound and vibration to detect that leak. But what if it's in the middle of my living room? You know how much that would cost?
Yeah.
And my wife would just tell me to move outside and sleep in a tent.
I don't know. Maybe they can use. I was thinking maybe they can put like little inspection robots in your pipes, but that's after I thought about it a little bit more, it's totally ridiculous, right? But I mean, maybe you have ultrasound.
Yeah.
Something that can characterize what your pipes look like without having to dig up. I mean, there's technologies out there. The question is have we thought through those things? But it's that, but I don't think we look at the problem and qualify the problem and quantify the problem in a holistic way.
Yeah.
And then work our way down to figuring out, okay, now where does the problem now transverse or cross or is shared across the public and private domains? And then, so you have homeowners worried about of leaks and waste of water, but that's really a personal financial thing. If there's a leak and your water bill comes out to $1,000 a month, of course you're going to go, and at some point the economics impact on your household is going to be such that you're going to invest in getting some dude to come out and dig some holes in your front yard to figure out if there's like a crack in your water main, right? But until that happens, you're not going to do anything, but the problem is going to persist. And you're making a great point. How do we inspect proactively the condition of the whole system, or at least as much of the system where the problem can be, an issue with that aspect of the system can be let's say a outsized problem or outsized contributor to the problem. But do we think about things that way?
No.
I wonder.
No.
I don't know. Actually, I don't. It's just I know that we just have this big ass problem, and I don't hear anybody saying what I just said.
Well, another thing we don't talk about, how a lot of us, I'm just going to include myself in it, we don't realize how ancient some of this infrastructure is. You go to
Roman times, bro.
Yes, but some people don't realize that. You've got like wooden pipes, probably in places like New York City,
London,
Boston. Yes, if we go across the pond, that are ancient.
Yeah.
And and then we get into
go to Toledo, dude. Go to Toledo. It's like a friggin', 700, 800,000-year-old castle with like medieval streets. You think they dug all that stuff up and put in like, PCB piping?
Yeah. Nice cast iron with nice sensors. Yeah.
And in the same neighborhood of Toledo, go up to Flint, Michigan and talk to them about water.
Yeah.
Bad news. Yeah. I definitely want to reframe this a little bit,
Sure.
I don't think people get, people are so caught up in their day-to-day lives, and that's fine, and they don't think about these mega issues. So we have these data points. We got close to 1 billion people who don't have access to fresh drinking water. That's kind of a thing. You have about 2 billion people who don't have access to sanitation. That means they're drinking the wrong stuff and they're dying. We've got this climate change thing going on, and so it's reducing the amount of fresh water we have. Things are drying up. Now I know we get floods in other places too, and it's a big mix, of different things. But places are drying up in some places. You hear about we're gonna probably be seeing mass migrations of populations over water because water disappears. People do what they got to do to survive. The Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon and the U.S. military are already anticipating not only the migration of people, potentially wars could be fought over water in the future as the water starts to get more and more scarce because we can't live without it. You always say water is 70% of the earth. It's 70% of the human body too. We're all made of water, and water is the most critical thing we have. But there's very tiny amount of fresh water on the earth when you think about it in the big scheme of things. And so diminishing water, not enough fresh water. We're losing 60% of our water in the cities every day, which is working against this other problem that's already hurting us. When we talked about SDG 1, about poverty, a lot of our discussion was around agriculture because a lot of people in poverty a lot of times are tied to farming to get food on their table. And one of the things we talked about there was one of the biggest uses of fresh water in the world is actually agriculture to grow food. And so we talk about how do we, allow people to use less water when growing crops and orchards and things like that. As I've always said, a lot of these SDGs kind of overlap and tie into each other, where maybe some of the solutions for one are helpful be solutions for the other. Mm-hmm. So when you look at this kind of problem like this, you wonder why, like right now in the US, we have this thing called Project Warp Speed put on by the government to get a,
vaccine
for COVID because it's so pressing right in front of us. But things like not enough water, climate change, all kinds of other issues seem so distant to the average person that it's not affecting their house is not on fire unless you're in California, Oregon, or Washington where your house is on fire. But it's weird. You know how people are, unfortunately. Until it's burning right in front of them, to get them to take action is hard. And so this water issue is so core to so many things. And so, you wonder, where's the Warp Speed project around water?
And we in California have had frequent droughts, and it's like, well, at what point do we learn? At what point does it get so bad that we actually give a crap about this stuff? And you would have thought that in California, especially Southern California, we would have thought of this a long time ago, or we would have taken it seriously a long time ago. And I think it's never really sunk in. You know what I'm saying? The problem, the urgency.
People still move to.
It's like, well, water's still coming out of my faucet, so yeah.
People still move to SoCal like there's no tomorrow. How come there's no? I know this sounds un-American. Where's the governance that says we can't have any more people move here? This whole region is dependent on the Colorado River that starts in the Rocky Mountains, and it's a trickle now. And that whole part of California actually wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for that one river.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think the Colorado River used to dump out here in San Diego, and there's no big outlet. It's just like
there's other cities that wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the Colorado River. Like I don't know, Phoenix, Las Vegas. desert cities.
Yeah, but Rob, these, I think there's a little bit of a brownfield problem there, but then there's also the larger, broader greenfield problem of how do we get fresh water to folks. I mean, that's really a tough one. I'm sitting here trying to think through how do you apply IoT technologies, or what aspect of IoT solutions could address the problem. I mean, what are you guys have anything that comes top of mind? Because I other than maybe on the agriculture side, doing some optimization with matching what the weather is going to do, and humidity and a given microclimate on a given day and a given hour, optimizing that with how much water you actually do proactively put out into your crops. Which, by the way, is a pretty advanced solution. That's not one of the easier, hey, just throw a sensor out there type of solution.
I would like to take, Leonard, where you're heading to.
Please.
This solution and present it to because this is a very divisive problem. But if we can leverage IoT to present data to an agricultural community, that will present the option, if available, of like, hey, you're able to grow your crop and make a living for you and your family and your community. But if you were to move this plantation of water intensive, almonds, and you were to take it from this Southern California where it doesn't rain that much, and then bring it to, and again, I don't know where, but I think that might address, because we can have all the data we want, but if I live of this land, and right now, I'm a fourth generation hardworking farmer, and and my family secure water rights, this is what I do. Yeah. So how do we and we need to think about this, because behind the water that's being used to farming, like, we have communities, we've got jobs, we've got people tied to this. So maybe that will be an IoT solution. Can we deliver evidence to a farming operation that if they were to relocate their thing, they can make a living, save a ton of water? And then, Rob, could this be part of a government project where there's some sort of like cost adjustment, tax breaks? Again, look. It's a big issue, right?
But you know what? You brought up something that is, I think, a real challenge, is water rights.
Yeah.
We kind of think that water is this resource that is unlimited. People think it's free, right, and that no one owns it, but the waterways typically are owned by somebody. Somebody has rights, and maybe, Rob, to your point before, I was going to say, in response to what you were saying prior, that maybe water, it's not data that's the new gold, it's water that's going to become the new gold.
Water is the new gold.
And you're going to have some folks that already have a stake and a claim on the waterways that are going to basically be one of the things that you have to deal with as you think through these IoT solutions for water, right? Or just a solution for the water problem in general.
It's part of your toolkit, measurement, of course. I saw this other data point. I was like, 6 billion gallons of water are lost every day in the United States. Fresh water. So there's two sides to this. There's conservation, which we've been mostly talking about, right? How do you conserve water, optimize, not use as much, get leaks. And also, when you detect leaks in the infrastructure, you have to upgrade the infrastructure, right?
Yeah. That
costs a ton of money, no doubt about it. But the other side is always new things, creation.
Yeah.
How do I, we've seen over the last, many, many decades, the addition of desalination plants along the coastlines of different countries and different parts of the world. because we have this big giant ocean with lots of salt water. And so I've been so into water stuff. I started giving money to this group called water.org, like starting in 2012. And like my children's book, I just give all the proceeds to that. They were kind of doing the thing you think about, building wells in Africa and things like that. Because it's also a women's rights issue, because it turns out a whole lot of women on the planet spend most of their day going to get water, like walking miles to get water and then bringing it back to the village, which that's awful. But I was certainly, IoT is not the whole solution. IoT can measure and tell us where we need to do things, but like lots of things, energy and creation. And so, I remember writing an article years ago after there was massive droughts in the Midwest and Texas, and then they migrated to California. And in the moment, we didn't know if it was going to be like this forever, or if it was just going to pass and the good old days would come back again. Because I remember seeing this was like 2012. I remember seeing a cover of like one of the Time magazines, one of the magazines. It was all burned up crops in Kansas. And so you're like, is this it? And so I remember thinking, we kind of talked about PVC pipe and pumps and everything. I wrote this whole deal about lining our coastlines with these desal plants. And then, you know what? A whole lot of people in America are in the oil business, natural gas, and they know how there's pipelines all over the country to move this stuff. There's no reason why you couldn't repurpose those pipelines and pumps to move water into the interior of the country. If you had desalination plants on the coastlines and then could pump that water to agriculture or people where it needed to be. Hugely expensive. I remember at the time thinking, oh gosh, it would probably cost $1 trillion to build something like this. That'll never fly. Of course, in the last year, I don't know how many trillions of dollars our government has spent just doing all the stuff with COVID and the economy. And so, when it's a life or death thing, maybe trillions of dollars doesn't seem so tough. Now, obviously there's the energy problem, because it requires a lot of energy to take salt out of water, and so whether it's, can renewables do that? Can solar and wind do that? Maybe small nuclear reactors, things like that do it. Energy is always so hand in hand with
on a USB stick. On a USB reactor on a USB
stick. Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a thing.
Sneaker net all the way.
IoT helps us measure, and it lets us know that there's a problem. And then it lets us do ongoing monitoring. It also lets us remotely control things. And so when you think about pumps and knowing where problems are to tackle instead of just shooting in the dark, it's a big deal, and it's probably costs a fortune. And I'm sure it's in the back of someone's mind in Washington, D.C., but it's not at the top of mind for most people.
You got me thinking, Rob, if magically, and of course nothing happens magically, but if we could grab half of the fresh water that is wasted here, and we found a way to deliver that because remember, it's being wasted, right? It's like, okay, first of all, don't call it, you're not losing money twice, right? Yeah. But, so what a deal would that be? Hey, water company, I'm going to, here's the deal. You're losing 60% of your water. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to take 40% of that water in exchange for, win-win. But again, just wishful thinking, because now we got to get into the logistics of how do we do that?
How come every house doesn't have rainwater capture barrels? I heard that's illegal in the States.
In some places it is.
It's illegal to capture fresh rainwater for your own purposes. In Australia, you can't build a new house without that, though, because they live drought like crazy. And so it's all hands on deck. Just seems like I think a lot of times we know maybe a lot of the possible solutions, and we just don't do it.
Yeah. Well, in regards to, this is why we need to pay attention to things like these at the lowest level, just, who's writing these things down from city council or all the way up, because I think that's what I'm going to read about. Like, how do you defend not being allowed to catch your own rainwater that's falling in your backyard with a bucket that you bought.
Yeah, because the bucket would look too funky and ruin the aesthetics of the community. That's the priority.
Gotcha.
Hey, I mean, think about it. Think about what it used to be to get approval. Unless you owned your house and your land and you weren't living in an HOA, how difficult it was to get solar installed on the top of your roof. People would complain. They go, those things look really ugly. It's really ruining the aesthetics of our community. But now look at what's happening. In California, it's illegal for a HOA to prevent a homeowner from installing solar, right? And in fact, they have to encourage you in a certain way to do that. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have the mindset change on water. But yeah, definitely we're not there yet. And, we don't really talk about the problem all that much. If you really think about it. I mean, how often do you see water come up as a problem in the news cycle?
Oh, it's only when it is.
Electricity, Elon Musk, Solar City, blah, 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 all the stuff, let's get rid of ICE and let's drive Teslas, But how often do we talk about water? But yeah, I mean, and then I think, Rob, for a lot of the greenfield stuff that you're talking about, the sanitation, it boils down to detection technology, really being able to at least detect and monitor what the condition of various things are, whether it's a public toilet that needs to be cleaned, or it's, being able to optimize the, share information about, let's say, the climate so that farmers are not over watering their crops to get the optimal yield, right? But all that stuff is stuff that may not be common knowledge or the folks in the field don't know about. And I think that's the huge education that still needs to happen, right? Because in our bubble, we talk about how IoT can do all these wonderful things. The farmer out in the middle of Nigeria somewhere, or Somalia, or like in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, they don't know any of this stuff,
Well,
they don't.
You might be right, but then you also have certain brands that deliver farming equipment and other supplies to farmers that are trying to take over that information supply chain. Hey, I will, if you put this equipment here, I'm going to automate some things for you, and I'll take a percentage of it, and just let the machine go. Oh, and if the machine breaks, don't you dare touch the machine, because I've got intellectual property there. So there's, I think from experience, if we think about agriculture and we separate technology for a bit, I think agriculture is one of those places that has the most quantified intrinsical knowledge that has gotten passed down generation to generation, where the output that we're getting from this human with no tech is better, if not the same, than some super fancy sensor IoT thing. And I remember being challenged and humbled twice. And I'm laughing about it now. This, I spoke with this prospect, and he's like, let me show you how we measure soil moisture, and just put his hands and told me, yep, that's good enough. I'll measure.
Yeah.
True story. So anyway, we also have to think that just because in some of these areas, IoT or ML or AI, like these, tech is not available, doesn't mean that they're not running an efficient operation.
Well, here's the crazy thing. I love that you brought that up, David, because think about that, how amazing a human is. How much data was captured by that gentleman just putting his hand into the dirt, scooping up a sample, feeling it, examining it. He was probably smelling it, see whether or not, okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these things that are happening. You have sensor fusion happening, and you have the analytics, and you have the decision making, right? The intelligence happening all in that instant, you know?
Yes. That man gave me actionable data that I needed to back up my little sensor and go and get back in my car and drive back to the city.
Did you guys just
and forget about model training? He's going to say, yeah, my grandpa taught me that.
Yeah. Did you hear that sound in the background? I heard that familiar sound. I think it was Apple.
It's top of the hour. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We got to go. Oh my gosh. That was awesome. All right, guys.
It was really good. This is an important topic. I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah. So thanks to our IoT Coffee Talk listeners and viewers. We really appreciate you tuning into this one and making it this far. If you did, hopefully you did. It's very, like Rob, you said, it's a very important problem. Follow us on www.iotcoffee.talk.com. I always screw that up. It's horrible. And share, comment, let us know, because we don't know what the answer is, and we'd love to hear someone who has the answer on how we solve the world's water problems and how we need to think about the problem. So we humbly submit to you to make a comment. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.